The morning of my wedding began with silence, not the peaceful kind that feels like a blessing. This was the kind that pressed against my chest, heavy and suffocating. The hotel suite buzzed with quiet excitement, makeup brushes tapping against palettes, hairspray misting the air, bridesmaids whispering about how perfect everything looked. But beneath all of it, there was an absence so loud it drowned out every other sound. I sat in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. The white dress fit like it had been made from a dream. Lace sleeves hugged my arms, and the veil cascaded down my back like soft snowfall. I should have felt radiant. Instead, I felt like a little girl waiting by a window. My father had promised he would be there. After years of distance and disappointment, he had called me 3 months ago and said the words I'd been craving my entire life. I wouldn't miss this for the world. I'll walk you down the aisle. I believed him. Even when my friends warned me not to build hope on fragile ground, I defended him. He's changed. I insisted. He wants to fix things. An hour before the ceremony, I checked my phone. No message. 30 minutes before, I called him. It rang and rang and rang. Voicemail. A tight knot formed in my stomach. I told myself he was driving. Maybe stuck in traffic. Maybe his phone battery died. I refreshed my messages again and again, as if hope could be summoned by force. 10 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, my aunt stepped into the room. Her expression told me everything before she even spoke. "He's not coming," she whispered. The world didn't shatter. It didn't explode, it simply dropped. Why? I managed to ask. She hesitated. He said it would cause problems at home, that it was complicated. Complicated. I felt my throat burn, but no tears came. I had cried too many times over broken promises to waste them now. The wedding planner knocked gently. It's time. My bridesmaids looked at me with wide, worried eyes. Someone asked if we should delay the ceremony. Someone else offered to call him again. I stood up. No. I said calmly, "We're not waiting." The music began to play, soft and beautiful. The doors opened. Guests turned in anticipation, expecting to see a father guiding his daughter with pride. Instead, they saw me alone. Each step down that aisle felt heavier than the last, but I kept my back straight. My heart ached, but it did not break. At the end of that long white path stood the man who had never once failed to show up for me. And suddenly, I realized something powerful. The man who didn't come had lost more than I did, because I was still here, and I was still walking forward. Marriage didn't erase the memory of that empty space beside me at the altar. It lingered like a shadow in every wedding photo, in every congratulatory message that mentioned how beautiful the ceremony had been. No one said what everyone had noticed. There was no father. For 2 weeks after the wedding, I tried not to think about it. Daniel was gentle, protective in the quiet ways that matter. He never forced the subject, but I could feel his anger simmering beneath the surface, not anger for himself, but for me. Then the truth arrived in the form of a phone call. It wasn't my father who called. It was my cousin. "I didn't want you to hear this from someone else." She began carefully. "Your stepmother didn't want your dad at the wedding." The words felt unreal. "What do you mean?" She said it would look strange, that people would ask questions, that it might upset the kids. The kids, as if I had never been one. Apparently, attending my wedding would have made his new life uncomfortable. It would have forced him to explain why he had been absent from mine. So instead of facing awkward questions, he chose the easier path. He chose not to come. Later that night, my phone finally buzzed with a message from him. "I hope you understand. I didn't want to create tension at home. It was a difficult position for me. I read it 3 times. Not once did it say, 'I'm sorry.' Not once did it say, 'I was wrong.' Just explanations. Justifications. Excuses wrapped in soft language. Something inside me shifted. All my life, I had bent myself into smaller versions to make his choices hurt less. I had accepted half efforts and delayed birthdays and promises that expired before they were fulfilled. I told myself he was trying, but trying doesn't miss your daughter's wedding. I realized then that his absence wasn't a sudden betrayal. It was a pattern, a continuation of every recital he skipped, every school event he forgot, every milestone he watched from a distance, or not at all. And yet, instead of rage, I felt clarity. If my presence in his life was optional, then so was his in mine. That night, I sat beside Daniel on our apartment balcony, the city lights flickering below us. "I'm done chasing him," I said quietly. Daniel squeezed my hand. "You never should have had to." For the first time, I wasn't heartbroken. I was awake, and I understood something powerful. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. My father had chosen comfort over courage. Now, I would choose something different. I would choose myself. Pain has a strange way of sharpening you. After the truth about my father settled into something solid and undeniable, I stopped asking why. I stopped replaying the wedding day in my mind. Instead, I poured every unanswered question into something productive. Work became my therapy. For years, I had run a small online jewelry shop from a corner of our apartment. It started as a hobby, late nights shaping delicate pieces inspired by resilience, second chances, and quiet strength. I named my first collection Unbroken, never realizing how personal that word would become. Now it meant everything. Every morning I woke up with purpose. I redesigned my website, improved packaging, studied marketing strategies, and reached out to influencers. I told myself that if I could not control who showed up for me emotionally, I would control how I showed up for myself professionally. One evening, Daniel found me sketching designs at midnight. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone," he said softly. "I'm not." I replied, surprising even myself. "I'm building something that no one can take away." A few weeks later, an opportunity arrived unexpectedly. A popular podcast host reached out after seeing one of my posts about walking myself down the aisle. She wanted to hear my story. I almost declined, but then I thought about the empty chair at my wedding and the strength it forced me to discover. So I said yes. During the interview, my voice trembled at first, but when I spoke about standing alone at the altar and saying, "I give myself," something powerful shifted in the room. I realized, I said into the microphone, that the people who fail to show up don't define your worth. Their absence reveals their limitations, not yours. The clip went viral. Messages poured in from women around the world. They shared stories of absent fathers, broken families, lonely graduations. My inbox filled with pain, but also gratitude. "You made me feel less alone." One message read, "Orders for my jewelry tripled in a month, then doubled again. I hired a small team. We moved into a tiny studio space." My brand transformed from a side project into a growing company built on one foundation: self-worth. 2 years after my wedding, I stood backstage at an entrepreneurship awards ceremony. My company had been nominated for Emerging Brand of the Year. As my name was called, applause erupted. I walked onto the stage in a deep emerald gown, heart steady, shoulders back. In the crowd, near the front, I saw him, my father. He looked older, smaller somehow. His expression wasn't proud in the loud, boastful way I once imagined. It was uncertain, and in that moment, I understood the truth. The greatest revenge isn't making someone regret losing you. It's becoming someone they can no longer ignore. Seeing my father in that audience changed something, but not in the way I once dreamed it would. For years I had imagined this moment. I would succeed. He would see me shining. He would regret every absence, every broken promise. I thought victory would taste like triumph. Instead, it tasted like peace. After the ceremony, while photographers captured smiling winners and flashing lights reflected off crystal trophies, I felt a familiar presence behind me. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to see me," he said. His voice sounded softer than I remembered, less certain. I turned slowly. "I didn't know you were coming," I replied. "I saw the nomination online." He admitted, I wanted to be there this time. This time. The words carried weight. For a brief second, the memory of my wedding day flashed in my mind, the empty aisle, the silent phone, the excuse about tension at home. I waited for anger to rise. It didn't. Instead, I saw him clearly, not as the hero I once believed him to be, not as the villain who ruined my wedding day, just as a flawed man who made fearful choices. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. Those were the words I had waited my entire childhood to hear. They used to feel like oxygen, something I couldn't survive without. But standing there in that glittering hall, I realized I had already learned to breathe on my own. "Thank you," I said gently. "I'm proud of myself too." The simplicity of that statement seemed to surprise him. A few weeks later, he asked to meet for coffee. I agreed, not out of longing, but out of closure. When we sat across from each other, there was no dramatic confrontation, no raised voices, just truth. I was wrong. He admitted, "I chose the easy path too many times, and it cost me you." His honesty hung in the air between us. "You didn't lose me," I replied calmly. "You just missed parts of my life you can't get back." He nodded, eyes glistening. "Can I fix it?" I shook my head slightly. "You can't fix the past, but you can show up now, consistently, not when it's convenient." That was my boundary. Clear, steady. Over time he tried. He called regularly. He attended small milestones. He asked questions and actually listened. Trust didn't bloom overnight, but it began to grow, cautiously. On my third wedding anniversary, Daniel and I held a small vow renewal in our backyard. Nothing grand, just close friends, warm lights, and soft music. This time, my father sat in the front row, not walking me, not leading me, just present. And as I walked toward my husband again, I felt something stronger than revenge. I felt whole, because the sweetest victory was never about making him suffer. It was about no longer needing him to complete me.